So welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I'm here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, functional nutrition supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually all around the world. So he's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world, and is going to kick us off with some more. I mean, we've been talking about some of your clinical insights, but you've got some specific ones to share with us tonight.
Yeah, I want to get real specific. So, and again, so much inspiration. The first one I want to chat with you about, and actually this has nothing to do with the cleanse. This is just a gentleman that is working with one of our trainers. He's 70 years old, has decided that he wants to improve his golf game, that his younger buddies are starting to outdrive him. Like when he hits the ball, they're hitting it farther than him, and that's not okay for him. So he was asking himself the question, what do I need to do? And when he started to talk to people, he said, well, you got to get better range of motion. In order to hit the ball farther, you got to be able to move your body better. Maybe you got to get a little stronger. And he noticed at the end of his game, well when they did the back nine, 18-hole course, right? So you do the back nine, he would start to get fatigued. And then his golf game would go to crap. So he starts working with one of our trainers, and they've been working together for, I think it's a little over 6 weeks now. When he first started, the trainer had him do kind of a plank test, just to kind of see where he at. And he couldn't hold plank for a minute. And granted, he's 70 years old. So
plank is hard.
Plank is hard. Yeah. Plank is hard, no doubt. So Karen, last week, at the end of the week, the trainer told me that he's up to 4-minute plank. 4 minutes.
4 minutes is a long plank.
That's more than the Marines are required to do.
Yeah,
that is a legitimate plank. So
I've tried a 4-minute plank, really.
It's no joke. It's no joke. Yeah. So the great question that I think everyone should be semi-asking is, well, how did he do it? How did he go in 6 weeks from less than a minute to a 4-minute plank, which most humans cannot do? And you know how he did it? By doing it one day at a time.
Yeah.
By just choosing the first time. So listen, if you're out there listening right now and you're whatever age, you're 10, you're 20, 50, 60, 80 years old, and you want to start developing strength, or you want to get a better plank, whatever it may be, you know how you start? You get in push-up position, you hang out and see where you're at. The moment you get to see where you're at is the moment you get to start to increase. That's the moment that it happens. That's the moment you're actually doing the thing, not just a measurement, but you're actually doing that thing. And the beauty is that I don't think we give ourselves, humans, nearly enough credit for what our creators created, these human bodies, and how magical they truly are when we line up things that are in our favor, like eating and sleeping and those types of things. So hats off to my 70-year-old guy. And again, totally inspiring to me, that I'm thinking like,
love it.
Karen, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. Can I do a 4-minute plank?
I'm really unsure whether I can. So yeah, at 70, that's amazing. And I also just love the mindset of that. I just find there are people, in their 70s who are like, well, I'm too old to even try. Yeah. I'm too old for that. I'm too old. Whereas this guy's like, no, I'm going to, regardless of how old I am, I'm just going to give it a go every day. He might not have set out to be like 4-minute plank is my goal, but through like every day just doing it, that's where he's gotten to.
It's so motivating. And I asked the trainer, I said, what's motivating me? Tell me, it was his golf game. I thought it was going to be some other like big life moment, something that like he had a life and death. He
likes golf.
No, he likes golf. He just wants to be excellent at it, and he wants to play. And that mentality is awesome. So let me give you another one. So another girl, she's 49 years old, and I've been working with her for quite some time. And she's just an awesome human being. And she just, I think it's 49. I don't think she's 50 yet, but I think she turned just 49 the other day. And she is in the best shape of her life, physically, mentally, spiritually. In fact, she's at like her high school weight.
Wow.
Yeah, and she literally, I've known her for years, and not that it always about her looks, but she looks amazing. Like better, like she just looks. You know when you see someone and their eyes have energy, and their
Yes.
face looks healthy, and they're just walking better and easier. And she's got a lot like of other stressful things going on in her life, yet she's managing them much better. Now with this one, what's the fascinating part? And she just did a 21-day cleanse. Her soon-to-be husband would joined her as well, which is awesome, and he was all in. And she's always the one that motivates it. But interesting thing about her, how she got here, was it the 21-day cleanse? No, this is like the 5th year in a row she's done it, and
Yeah. Wow.
5 years of working on herself. Now, when she started this journey, it was probably maybe I found her at her worst place. She's just gotten through a divorce, a single mom, all of the things where I know some people that are listening to this, you might find yourself like in that space. Yet I will tell you, one effort at a time, one single choice at a time, and you don't know where it's going to end up. Literally, our conversations morning, and I think truth is, I think it brought tears to both of our eyes. I was trying to like not show them, but I was so happy for her, because this is the best I've ever seen her. When I met her, it was everything about it was going in the opposite direction, relationship wise, challenges with her son, her professional career, all of it was going in the wrong direction. Yet one step at a time. And she has, and I know her friends, and they're always there for her. She has a couple of those key people in her life, and is why, tribe and having people that love you for who you are, no matter where you are, is important to have in life. So I was just so super, super happy for that. So my clinical insight in that is that sometimes it's hard to see the long picture, the long haul. It's sometimes so hard, especially when we're so deep in it, yet just moving in the right direction is the victory. And you never know how far you can go, and how, like where you can reach if you're willing to just, and listen, I know her. I've been with her for years, and some days have been better than others. And there's been a lot of days when she's want to throw in the towel in, on her eating and on her exercise. And yet she's created such a foundation and a routine where exercise is part of her life. It is who she is now. Eating clean is part of her life. It some days are better than others, but it is part of her life. So wonderful. Yeah. So, and it took, and with that success story, I want to make sure everyone is clear on this. That took time, probably 5 years. And I think any transformations, that when you hear people have transformations, sometimes we forget the clock that goes with that transformation.
So we do.
Yeah,
it does take time. But imagine the thing is, because it's so hard to look 5 years and be like, okay, I need to keep doing this, and then in 5 years I'll be good, But if she stayed the same, the time is going to pass. 5 years is going to pass. You can either be, take that time and be in a good place in 5 years, or you can be exactly the same in 5 years, right? It's going to pass either way.
It is going to pass either way. And it goes, and sometimes it goes back so fast. When we think about like, wow, I used to be there. And the other part too, and we had this conversation in a nice way of measuring in reverse. Where were we? Like how far have we come?
Yes.
So the third clinical insight, a little bit different, this one. This gentleman, about 53 years old, he has lost 20 plus pounds. And this is a little bit of a twist. It's not sitting well because he's really thin now.
Okay.
And he's getting a lot of feedback from other people. So, and from other people, are you sure you're okay? Is everything okay? And behind the scenes, what really took place, he's taken alcohol out of his life.
Wow. Okay.
And he looks like an entirely different human being.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he feels like everything is completely changed. He's taken something that's been out in his life for a long time. He's taken it out, and he looks like a different human being. And for me as a practitioner, especially I do nutrition and we're always talking about inflammation. The moment I see someone, I know if they're inflamed, and I don't do it by judgment, but it's so crystal clear. The eyes, the cheekbones, the face, it is so crystal for myself, for my wife, for everyone I see, especially children who drink dairy. That's like, you just see the round red face. Anyways, so for him to see him the other day, literally, and I've known him for a long, long time, the best I've ever seen him. And when I said, "You look good," it took him by surprise.
Wow.
Because the feedback he's been getting is something must be wrong. And if enough people ask you what's wrong, it might get in, it might start to seep in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And it reminds me that these weird, like these weird stigmas we put on, being overweight or underweight, whatever it may be. It's interesting where we are accustomed to people looking puffy.
Yeah, wow. True.
We really are. So, and this guy, it's not like he was super overweight, but he lost 20 plus pounds, and now he's a thin guy. He's supposed to be a thin guy. Yeah. And so that was my third clinical insight. And I see that happen a fair amount. So just make sure that if you're sharing or you're asking other people, make sure we're being mindful of the questions you ask someone, because you don't know how it sits for them.
Totally. Yeah. Maybe just don't even comment at all. Or maybe the question is like, I mean, really, has this guy got more energy? Is he still like, is he strong? Is he feeling like stronger? Is he feeling like he's got more energy? Is he feeling like happier? If so, do we really care what his weight is? I mean, if he's feeling like that and he's 400 pounds, okay, that's unlikely, I guess, but knowing what our ideal weight is, and we'll talk about that later in the show tonight, is important. And it's a little tricky, but it is important to know what our ideal weight is. And it's different for all of us. Interesting enough about that gentleman, we did start talking about function, and he does play this sport, and he was out there playing, and he's moving better now than he ever has. Like, he's lighter on his feet, and even his people that he competes against have noticed and commented on it. Okay.
So it's the function, as you mentioned, is so important when it comes to our health, of measuring is how are we doing functionally? Are we stronger? Are we fitter? Is our brains working good? Are we having more good conversations with people? Can we get deep in a conversation? Are we allowing ourselves to emote? Are we numb? All of these are signs of health. So those are 3 clinical insights. And honestly, I probably could have gone more. And I write them down during the day. And I'm like, man, I got to talk about this because it's so inspiring to me.
Yeah.
One way or another. So.
I love that. And I think they're inspiring to everyone, especially as, they're people who aren't necessarily, haven't, they've had their challenges and been able to overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. And every case is a little bit different. And I think that the more expectations we have that we can be excellent, that we can be awesome, and we start to fill in those blanks, I think that's where it gets a little bit more exciting. And I think that's where an emphasis needs to continue to, be made in what's possible.
Yeah, I love that. Well, speaking of what's possible, we've got a topic we want to talk about today.
Yes.
So, what are we talking about?
So tonight's topic is basically going to be 5 strategies to live longer. Or you might say simply, just let's not die. These are don't die strategies at the same time.
And also live better, right? Because we don't want to live longer if we're like fully medicated and we're in bed and we spend the last 20 years not being able to do anything.
Correct. Yeah. Quality of life is really what it boils down to. And at the same time, let's have the longest high quality life that we possibly can. Yeah. And I think that's really where it needs to fit, because, I've been in healthcare long enough to know that nobody is really comfortable with saying tomorrow's my last day. No, for sure. But yeah, for sure. And the more people we can keep up that quality of life. Like, there are people who are, in their 90s and still able to do a bunch of stuff, right? Like it's totally possible. Yeah. All right. So let's dive in. So number one. All right. Number one, you want to live longer, want to live in this list, Karen, is the easiest, most fundamental list that I can create. And listen, there are all kinds of biohacks, and we can talk about those, but this list is the simple, everyone can understand this list. And it doesn't, I don't even know if there's a single thing on here that would require like money, time, and effort. Well, money, time. It'll require things, yet you don't have to like go buy a infrared sauna, or you don't need to buy like a, you know, an oxygen tank or something. So number one, interesting enough, is to live longer, to not die early. Number one, don't smoke.
Okay. So don't smoke what?
Don't smoke anything.
So what do we include with that?
Yeah. So the obvious we're going to include are things like cigarettes. And I listen, I know,
I think everybody knows cigarettes, right? Well, hopefully.
Say that again.
I think everybody knows cigarettes, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I think now there's enough. I don't know. I mean, people are still smoking them. Sometimes.
Oh yeah, Karen, it is still a multi-billion-dollar business.
People do a little bit. I'm always like, what? Do people like, you still smoke? Like, is that still a thing?
It is still a thing. So I want to elaborate a little bit more on that, especially after a year that we just had, where we had a pandemic based on a virus that attacked essentially the lung field. If we had better, stronger lungs, hands down, we wouldn't have caught as much pneumonia. People wouldn't be in the hospital. They wouldn't have died of respiratory diseases. So remember, it wasn't the virus that killed most people. It was ultimately a pneumonia that interfered with the ability to breathe. So let's just say cigarettes are the first starting point. Yet the challenge about the other things that we're going to talk about with smoking is they get kind of these free passes. And specifically, I'm going to talk about vaping and marijuana. So
let's talk about vaping, because a lot of people switched to vaping. And before, I mean, I didn't read anything about it or look into any of the research or even one chemical that's in it. But to me, it just looked like an absolute disaster waiting to happen, that people were deciding that vaping was going to be better than cigarettes. Like, what do we know about vaping now? Because more and more stuff's coming out about it.
Well, I think all of us that were in the health field were sitting on the sidelines, like with that same expression of thinking, this probably won't end well. And it hasn't. We now know that the chemicals that are involved in there that are coming directly into the lung, we're passing a big part of the immune system. It is compromising the body, creating all different types of different chemical problems, creating problems with literally autoimmune conditions. Karen, the list could go on and on and on.
Even weird things. Erectile dysfunction apparently has been linked to vaping. Like literally, like the list is huge.
Because many of them are neurotoxins. And when you start to have a neurotoxin that affects the nervous system, the toxin comes in the body, anything can happen after that, literally anything. Yet it unfortunately gets a pass as smoking. So I want to touch on another, and I know this isn't going to sit well for some, or probably even some of my colleagues who, think it's great, marijuana. It is still smoke for the lungs. And it is what it is. Take aside all of the benefits that you might be from marijuana, which might calm you down a little bit, might get you, if you're in a cancer protocol, you're having chemo, and that's the predominant studies that have done. It may help create an appetite. It may ease some people with anxiety. And there's a lot of other ways to do that. So I still don't think that that's the best way. Yeah.
As in other ways to do it, as in other ways to take like CBD as opposed to smoking marijuana.
No, I really meant relative to anxiety. So many other ways.
Just other ways to relax.
Yes, I think there's more effective with less side effects. Many more side effects, natural ways, different herbs you can use like kava or ashwagandha or CBD for that matter. All very effective, proven. Even there's data. There's some nice research behind it. The challenge here is this: is that, and especially with the younger population, and I see it with some of the parents. A lot of the parents, and maybe they like to smoke a little bit too, and their children are smoking, and because it's kind of widely accepted now, it's essentially legal. And I understand that it's a natural herb. Maybe it should be legal. I'm not here to argue that point. The challenge is it's still smoke. It still burns the lung. It still breaks down the mucosal lining in the throat, in the mouth, and in the lung field. And that weakens the immune system. We know this. The challenge is it gets a free pass. Marijuana smokers do not consider themselves smokers like a cigarette smoker. That a cigarette smoker, those are bad. You are damaging your body. Marijuana gets this free pass because there's some medicinal use that has nothing to do with the lungs, but it damages the lungs. And I saw this all through COVID and still seeing it. that many of my marijuana folks who are smoking, and I'm talking about the ones, I'm not talking about what people say every now and then, a blue moon. I don't know how often there's a blue moon. I don't think it's often. I think it's once a month, or like, I don't know. I just don't think it's often. To me,
and so how often is it going to cause damage?
I'll give you my every now and then. The Dr. Bart version every now and then is like once a month or less.
Okay.
So if you are eating, I don't know, if you're drinking heavy more than once a month, you're drinking, right? You're a heavy drinker. That means every other week or something like that. If you're smoking dope once a month, whatever. But unfortunately, and this isn't everybody, there are a lot of people out there that smoke a little marijuana every single day. And again, it has nothing to do with whether or not marijuana is good for us. I'm talking about the act of smoking for the lung field. So number one, across the board, we know this is not debatable, that smoke is bad for the lungs. Karen, I could go as far as saying burning candles in your house all day long, that smoke. And many people who do burn candles eventually figure out, man, this isn't so great for me all the time.
Wow. So you never burn candles?
We used to do it all the time. I'm
surprised at the candles.
Yeah. So it's so interesting enough. Flame inside still creates combustion in the house. So I used to burn candles all the time. Love the scent, love the feel that candles would give. Until one day, I remember having one like on my countertop, in the soot it put all over these cabinets. These cabinets were like the paint, or I don't know, they weren't plastic, but the material they're made of had this real oily soot all over. And I was thinking, wait a minute, that's just the smoke. Where is that soot going?
Yeah.
To the lung field. And again, there's plenty of studies showing that this stuff. Now, there's some burning candles that burn better than others. Yet the mindfulness of understanding that smoke isn't super good. Ask a fireman how good, like, smoke, and how dangerous. People don't die of burning as much as they do of smoke inhalation. So I'm just throwing it out there. When I said this is going to be the easiest list ever of how to live longer, this is an easy list. So, and on the top of that list, it is a no-brainer, yet let's continue to be aware, and let's make sure that if you are a smoker, that be really super mindful and kind, and that nobody has to inhale your secondhand smoke. And I think that's fair. Not some people, nobody, especially not your family, and especially not your children, who can't even have an argument, like even have a say in it. So let's just be super mindful of those things. And listen, if every now and then you want to light up, go outside and let the nature take care of it, no big deal, right? Yet if it's that repetitive thing, you're smoking in the car with your child or something like that, just let's be super mindful about that. So I think that was an easy one. So let's truck into number 2 here. Okay. So number two, how do you live longer? Simple health tip, easy, don't die strategy. You got to move your body.
Okay. So what do we mean by move your body?
Yeah. So I'll break this down in a couple of ways. One, the human body was designed to move. Part of the way that it's a simple law of supply and demand. If we use our body, we can then help regenerate more cells. By using our body, we increase the need for certain hormones, things like testosterone and growth hormone. If you don't move your body and you're not utilizing muscles, and you're doing hard things, and you're climbing mountains, and you're pulling weeds, we don't tell the body that there's a need to make these things. So we must move our body. And I say that, and everyone gets that. The challenge is that most of us have a massively sedentary lifestyle. And I'm going to go as far as saying 22 plus hours a day, you're either lying or sitting still. And I think that's being generous. I don't think most people are moving for 2 hours.
I know, which is scary, really, because I mean, you can wake up, get into your car, drive to work, sit at work all day, sit in your car, drive back, sit on the couch, watch TV, and then go to bed. And if you don't make an effort to do anything else in between, then that's going to be even more than 22 hours, which is scary, really. And I mean, even just the 22 hours, there's probably been days where I've done 22 hours, especially if I get really stuck into work. I work on a computer, like I sit, I'll go take my dog for a walk every day, but that could be the 2 hours. And then it's scary.
It is. When just what you said there, Karen, that was a perfect articulation of of most people. Now, with that being said, that's where we have to kind of compensate for the lack of movement. Because someone could argue it's not normal for a person to go to a gym and exercise for an hour. It's a compensation. It's a requirement in order to stay healthy, because the other 23 hours you were sitting still.
Yeah.
And our lifestyles are more indicative of that stillness now. And I'm the exact same way. So on Thursdays, very challenging for me. That's when I do all my Zooms, which I love.
Yeah.
Yet I find myself in this environment 6 or 7 hours straight.
Yes.
It's been a long time in my career, 25 plus years. I don't sit at a desk.
Yeah.
So that's back in my life. So I have to think, how am I going to compensate for that? Which means exercise in the morning. I get out, walk the dogs a little bit more in the afternoon. So movement, and there's some other things about movement, Karen, that I think is worthy of conversation. One is range of motion, like literally our ability to move our body. One of the fundamentals is so we can take care of our own body. I know that sounds odd or simple, like weird, or just weird is really what it sounds like. Yeah. To be able to reach and touch every part of our own body is important. That's part of being able to maintain your own body. You got to rub a muscle. You got to like flick a bug off of you. I know that sounds fundamental, yet range of motion is something that, talking about people having sedentary lifestyles, many people, even those that exercise, have lost a lot of range of motion due to both injuries and improper training, surgeries, and repetitive lifestyles. So range of motion is probably one of the most clear indicative health markers moving forward. I love the saying that, and I've been saying it for years, that you're born like Gumby, you die in rigor mortis. And you want to be moving. Yeah.
Because even when they say being able to get off the floor, or trying to get off the floor without any hands is a kind of longevity marker, or like a health marker. Like, can you get off the floor without using your hands?
Yeah, my staff and I were talking about that today. So there's this in yoga, there's a posture called Malasana. Okay. And essentially Malasana is way most third world countries where people, they don't sit down at a necessarily like a table with square chairs, and they sit on like their sacrum and crunch their spine. They squat. Okay. That squatting position where like like really your butt's almost touching the ground. That's what's called Malasana in yoga. Okay. Yeah. And we were talking about today, like if you could get into Malasana and then gracefully sit down on your butt. Yeah. Like just gracefully, instead of like falling down. And it's one of the things, what's funny about it, Karen, is it's one of the things I'm working on right now to help rehab my knee. Yeah. Is the ability to get the other joints around my knee, my ankle joint, my hip flexors and whatnot, to create a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more range of motion, in order so I can move properly, get the proper blood flow and whatever else the body needs. So without blood flow, so literally the blood carries nutrients, oxygen, hormones. It carries everything we need for vitality. The opposite of that would be, say, someone who has long-standing type 2 diabetes. And they get neuropathies, and especially in the lower limbs, where it's harder to get nutrients down into the legs. And as a result of not moving and pumping the blood back into the heart, they get less nutrients, and you start to get necrosis. And then sometimes even lose a leg. That's like the total opposite of not moving. And that started with somewhere along the way, there was a conversation in their own brain. Well, I don't feel like exercising. I don't feel like moving. And to our audience today, I would say, listen, we have to do hard things. We have to do hard things physically. Yeah. The moment you start thinking that you have an excuse not to move today is one of the most important reasons you have to do it. Yeah. If you find yourself in a situation because your schedule changed, you got a new job, you got more work going on, you change your relationship, and you find yourself getting off your routine, you went from 5 days a week of exercise to 3 if you're lucky. You have to draw a hard line in the sand and realize this isn't going anywhere good. Yeah, 100%.
And also, we don't have to go to the gym, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a gym workout we're talking about here.
Correct. I don't have a gym membership. I'm fortunate enough to have enough knowledge. I still love the gym. Don't get me wrong. I love group environment. I love group classes. I'm just in rehab right now, so I can't wait. I love the idea, like when it's a packed yoga class. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Like Orange Theory or whatever they may be. I love classes, and I also love old school big box gym where everyone's a meathead and there's lifting and sandwich. I love it. Like, it's inspiring to me. I know it's not everyone's vibe. Yeah, I
Not
love that.
everyone's cup of tea. No.
Yeah. To me, it's
But
fun, but
yeah,
they
so
don't.
they could walk. Like, I mean,
Yes,
just get
Karen.
steps. Because even like times that like I have been more in that, like get stuck into work, or even just sometimes it's like, that's why some of the trackers are really good to be able to say how many steps like did I get up. Like, it's really crazy sometimes, I'll get to the whole end of the workday and then I'll look at my thing and it'll be like 1,400 steps or something so low, and you're like, oh my god, I didn't walk at all. And it does kind of trigger you to be like, hey, okay, like I got to get up, like go do something. It's 4:00. I've literally 1,400 steps is like to the bathroom and back, like clearly I didn't move enough. And so it can bring some awareness to how much you might actually have not moved.
Yeah. And again, I want to speak to everyone out there that maybe you haven't been moving well. Maybe it's been years since, and maybe it's because your joints hurt, maybe because your knees hurt, maybe because your hips hurt. Move some other part of your body, create blood flow, move your arms, move your shoulders, move your abs, move something that creates this simple law of supply and demand in your body. So it could be anything. So there was that benchmark of 10,000 steps a day. And I really love it because it was a benchmark. There's some science out there showing that, but as little as 7,000 steps per day is significant in reducing your all causes of mortality. So there's so much evidence that shows that some is always better than none. Or maybe you're like the 70-year-old guy here where he just started. And it was 1 minute today and it turns into 4 minutes 6 weeks later. So anyone listening, wherever you are, maybe you haven't moved, maybe you have to get on a bike that, has stability. Maybe it's like a trike or something like that, where there's like 3 wheels on it. Maybe you don't have the balance anymore. Or maybe you have to get in a stationary bike in your garage or something, which is what I happen to use now. Maybe you just do something where you can just start to pedal and you don't have to worry about the balance so much. And I say that because that shows up in my clinic sometimes. People that have challenge with an ankle or a knee or a foot, and then if it hurts, they may lose their balance and fall. And those are real issues as well. But anything is absolutely better than nothing. So got to move it. That old saying, move it or lose it, is so true. And I think after 2 years of a pandemic, of so many people on one side of it have taken charge of their health. And then on the other side, so many people let go and they gain 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds. And that's real as well. Yeah. Now everyone's, like, in my mind, at least, everyone's starting to move back in the direction of this self-alignment, of this self-consciousness of saying, you know what, this is my life. I just spent 2 years waiting for someone to fix it. No one's doing that. So I better take control of this thing. So move it a little bit. That's number 2.
And so that kind of moves right into number 3. What's number 3?
Number 3 is to maintain your ideal weight.
Now, what does that even mean? Because as we were kind of talking about with this guy that had lost lots of weight, how do you even know what your ideal weight is?
Yeah, so kind of a tricky question, Karen. It starts with this. It starts with asking ourselves, am I at my best weight?
Yeah.
You won't lie to yourself. Your brain won't lie to you, right? Your conscious mind, even your subconscious, really. You'll come up with excuses right after that. So you got to come up with, you just got to ask yourself, am I at my ideal weight? And this is a simple yes or no. And then start to reverse engineer that. I find that most people don't know what their ideal weight is because they haven't been there for so long. So it takes effort. Like the young girl that I said that for 5 years, this girl's been working at it. And in that 5 years, I bet you she's the worst case scenario. Over a month, she was probably 80% on point of all the things you and I talk about. God's garden, eating clean and exercising. And I would say this with the weight. It's not about the weight, but we have so much evidence, again, especially over this last 2 years, that if you are not at the ideal weight and you are overweight, it is detrimental to living.
Yeah.
That's a fair, safe way for me to say it. It is detrimental for your overall well-being. And in terms of, if things go wrong, they will go wrong faster if you're considerably overweight. So getting to your ideal weight, what does that mean? You probably have to choose to get clean for a period of time and see how much your body changes. And you got to go all in, and in it, not because of the weight, yet because you want to live this incredibly vital life. Maybe because you want your golf swing to get better. Maybe because you're about to get married, or whatever, maybe, or you recognize your clock's ticking.
Yeah.
And you know that if you put a better effort in, that you'd get better results, and you would stop looking at the clock ticking.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, we're talking about, so is there ever an underweight? Like, I mean, are we just talking about overweight?
No, I think there is an underweight, and the underweight can happen for a couple of reasons. One, you can have the obvious food disorder.
Yeah.
Let's put that aside for Karen, the disorders, Karen. And there is a way that we can get underweight, and it's really what I call the skinny fat situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is real, and this is when our weight may not go up at all. Maybe it stays the same or goes down, but it's as a result of losing muscle mass.
Yes.
And becoming much more fragile human beings.
Yes.
And so this is as real as it gets. And it's one of the reasons I invested several years ago in this machine that we have in our office called the InBody machine. It's a body composition test. And it really gives us, me as a practitioner, but it's also fun, I think, just to get on it, or not, sometimes not so fun.
It's enlightening either way.
Enlightening, yes. It gives great data. It gives us the information about what is my body doing? Like, how is my muscle mass relative to last month, relative to last year?
Mm-hmm.
Your body fat percentage in that one is often very, I think it shows what people didn't want to see.
Yeah.
And especially quite frankly, several of my aging females.
Yeah, because we want to maintain, I mean, it gets a little bit harder to maintain, or more important to maintain muscle mass as you get older.
Yes. And I agree. There has to be a solid plan.
Yeah.
So, and because most women, someone your age, my wife's age, we're really starting to talk about this more often, when you're getting to your 40s plus, where we'll start talking about muscle building for women and strength. Early in your life, just thinking about like being healthy and looking good. Right. Yeah. Like I'm not
totally,
trying to be
100%.
there.
Yeah.
I think that's, and then as we go, we're really starting to consider the fragility of being a human being that has lost weight and lost muscle mass.
Yeah.
And that plays a huge role in living longer. In the event that you have a fall and you don't have strong muscles, I mean, you don't have strong bones. And that correlation, and it's a sidebar, but that correlation is not made enough when it comes to things like osteoporosis. I did a talk just a couple of weeks back on to an elderly group, and it was really about osteoporosis, but the whole lecture that I gave was really about muscle wasting. And as we lose muscle, as a result, it's always going to end up as a bone density loss, because if you're losing muscle, you're not weight bearing, you're not putting loads, you're not putting stressors onto your body, therefore you're not building strong bones. So one of the clear indicators of weaker bones will be losing muscle mass over time.
Yeah, wow. And a lot of people don't put that together.
No, that's pretty much, it's I don't think it's talked about at all. And
No,
so for women that want healthy bones, and I love supplementation, they say, well, doc, shouldn't I be taking a lot of calcium? I said, no, you should be doing a lot of push-ups. Like, you should be doing a lot of body squats. You should be walking a lot. You should get your body moving, do lunges, do squats, do push-ups. Then with all the vegetables that you're going to be eating, you'll absorb all the calcium that you need.
Well, speaking of vegetables, what's number 4?
Yeah. Real food diet. Want to live longer, have a real food diet.
Yeah.
And this too is more important now than probably it's ever been. And we've talked about this a fair amount in this show. In just, we should probably do a show on GMOs, which I think we've talked about a fair amount, but it could definitely take up our time or be valuable time to do a deeper dive on all the different pesticides and chemicals and herbicides that are in our food today, where just 18 years ago, they were not.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
a real food diet is not a fad. That's what humans are supposed to do. This is one of the first times in history, this last decade or so, where 90% of what you find in the store is not real food anymore. It's a version of a real food with chemicals in it. And the human body, what makes it break down are toxins. So that's that's what creates oxidative stress. Oxidative stress kills cells, and that's what is aging. So eating a whole food diet, which I love to just coin as God's garden, if it comes from a root plant tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea, eat it. Now we may need at times specific strategies, and that's where you get with, a clinician, someone who does functional nutrition like myself. And that's when we figure out what strategy should we use. Should we use a vegetarian diet for you? Should we use keto for you? Maybe we need carnivore. Maybe it's just plant-based or Mediterranean. That's when you apply all those specifics. Yet the primary is just a whole food diet. And that's the conversation I've had over the last week is people coming off their cleanse and they're saying, well, what should I do?
Just
God's
eat real
garden,
food.
baby. Yeah. God's garden, baby. Eat real food.
Yeah.
And there's no pushback on it. That's what's really been interesting this year. What do you mean? No one's like arguing, like, really got to eat real food the whole time? No, it's been this fascinating, like movement of energy where so many people are just like, yes, whatever it takes. Been down that other road. I'm good. I've seen the light. I'm moving forward.
Yeah. And then also that makes it simple, I mean, obviously, as you said, there are those specific diets for a specific strategy, for a specific therapeutic reason, potentially, or for something somebody's doing, or while we're on the cleanse or whatever. But otherwise, generally, I mean, if you can just keep it to eat real food, that gives you like a wide range of things you can cook, make, eat, you can eat out like that. There's a lot of things you can do. It keeps it flexible.
Yeah. And when it comes to, eating real food, we can use those. And sometimes we actually need to make modifications.
Yeah.
So as people listen to this, they may say, well, doc, I've eaten, I switched. And now I eat mostly real food. I eat mostly from God's garden, yet things aren't really changing for me. Well, you might need some catch up, quite frankly. You might need to modify and have a very specific type of protocol, like maybe like a low carbohydrate or carnivore for that matter, or a plant or vegan diet that gets you caught up. Maybe it helps you get rid of some conditions or, concerns that you may have. And then mostly what I find clinically is that we can go to a God's garden and you find what serves you best.
But also people have a different God's garden, right? Like some people might have like a God's garden that's like a little bit more plant-based focused. Some have a God's garden that might have more animal products in it. Like God's garden can look different for different people, right? Like different people need different, or just find they thrive better on a slightly different way of eating.
Absolutely, Karen. In fact, my wife and I are different. So
okay.
I don't really function well, and don't get me wrong. I love bread. I love bagels. I love all of that stuff.
Everybody like?
I think so. Yet, as much as I want to be in denial, the moment I start eating them, and they slide back into my diet, my health downgrades. So I do very well leaning into a mostly low carbohydrate, borderline keto diet, with incorporating intermittent fasting. That has served me really well over the last couple of years. That's when I feel like I thrive the most. But that's not for everybody.
No.
So for example, the keto diet is not really effective. It's not, especially the keto diet with like lots of intermittent fasting, that doesn't help my wife function at her best.
Yeah.
So vegetables and constantly getting, warm cooked vegetables for her is what makes her thrive. So to your point, it's going to vary. What I do think is important that we give ourselves enough of a window to overcome a lot of our dysfunctional stuff. So for example, if you have yeast, if you have yeast or candida, we're going to have to get the carbs out. It might even mean all the sweet potatoes, might even mean a lot of the good things from God's garden. So sometimes all those guys will have to be pulled out in order to get at least an even playing field. And then you can figure out what's going to serve you best in the big picture. So to that one, number 4, eat real food. Like you want to live longer. That's a good strategy. You want to, not die, eat real food. That's it.
Love it. What's number 5?
Number 5 it's vague, but it's not. It's managed stress.
I feel like this might be the most challenging one.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I said it's vague, but it's not is listen, humans were built to not only manage stress, to thrive on stress.
Yeah.
Okay. So in one way, I would tell you, by doing hard stuff like lifting heavy stuff and putting compression on the body is what builds resiliency in our joints, in our muscles, in our tendons, and our ligaments. Awesome. That coming and going of stress and adapting to it. Having an excess 100 pounds on the body every day would not be the equivalent of me lifting 100 pounds and putting it away and adapting to it. So that type of stress, just being overweight in your body is very stressful to the organs, very stressful to the joints. There's no doubt about that. You'll see more wear and tear. When it comes to stress though, Karen, most stress that we are carrying around with, our stress is much different, but humans have always had stress. Imagine the stress of actually having to try to find food.
Right? Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
The worst case scenario, we have to pick up one of two.
Yeah, a real food shortage, or really not being able to find a place to live, or yeah.
Those are real stressors. Like now, our stress about food is I don't like anything in the fridge.
I know, right?
So
I mean, perspective is everything.
Yeah, it really is. Yet the challenge that we have now, maybe more than other, I'm not sure, that we have established and created more fear of the unknowns about so many things, and they're self-induced.
Yeah.
And these fears, these stressors that we create, fear of what the stress of what someone else might think of me, the stress of different environments, what's going to happen if I do this, the fear of the unknown, the uncertainty type stressors that we continue to bring in, the guilt that we carry, all of these different things literally inhibit cellular function. And as a result of it, we are inhibiting the expression of human life. So stress is this carried emotional stress is inhibiting our capacity. We're not great communicators when we're under a lot of duress. We're not very kind. We're not very loving. I'm not saying we're awful human beings, but we're not at our best. There's no doubt about it. So in this category, probably the best approach to this would be willing to be really honest with ourselves and do a quick kind of gut check on our health, our wealth, and our relationships. And when it comes to our relationships, just ask yourself, is this healthy? Do the relationships I have help me be a better human being? Are they adding? Do I need to up my game so I can make my relationships better? And most of us would say yes to that. Most of us would say, in order to manage the type of stressors that I have, my relationships, think about it, really, if we really boiled it down to it, stress in life is going to come from finances or family. That, in a nutshell, that's it. That's where they're boiling down to. So if you look at the family relationships that you have, can you step it up a little bit and be some better version of ourselves with maybe all the things we just talked about tonight? We could move better. We could sleep better. Well, we didn't talk about that one yet. That might be the next. We could eat better. We could manage our weight better. We could go burn off some excess anxiety. We could maybe not smoke. We can do all these different things to become a better version of ourselves that most likely would help us be better in whatever relationship we are in. We could do a better job.
Yeah. And I think that's you've got to have that focus. So often, especially in relationships, we focus on the other person. What's that other person not doing or whatever. But if we actually just brought the focus back to us, it's amazing how much that flows on to the relationship.
And I'll go one step farther, whether this is, people are going to like the way I'm going to say this or not. I'll go one step further. Maybe you're in a relationship where the other person's awful. But if you're truly at your best, you won't stick around for that awful relationship.
Yeah.
If you're not at your best, you may stick around for a whooping. Right. Yeah. You follow me here? So when we're at our best and we're taking pride and we're caring and loving for ourselves, and we have, a bigger picture than versus just in the moment here, we won't compromise ourselves. We won't comply as much. And therefore we're proud and we're going to have passion about the things that we do or don't do. So that's one part of stresses. And then the finances in life, it's real. And the beauty is that we have seen crystal clear that there's an opportunity there. there's so many opportunities to build wealth. And when you're healthy, it's definitely easier. When you have abundance of energy and mental clarity, every human being has some level of creativity or a capacity that's different than the next human being. Yet in order to express it at its fullest, no doubt about it, being healthy is a big part of it. Being strong, being flexible, your mind and your body are all big parts. So when I hear the topic stress, and it always comes up in longevity, is manage stress, manage stress, manage stress. Every time I hear that come up, now I start, especially as a practitioner now, I just view it a little bit differently. And I think about not so much our stress, but really what is our capacity. So if you want to manage stress, increase your capacity. And whatever that means, like just get better at what you're doing, get stronger as a human being, and you will be able to manage stress better.
Yeah, 100%. Because it can't, I mean, if you think about something that might stress you, maybe it's an email from your boss that's like stressing you out in the moment, right? One day you can like feel on top of it. You get that email, you're like, yeah, cool, that went wrong, I'm going to deal with it, whatever. And it doesn't really actually like stress your body. It just feels like something you're working on, and that's my next step and whatever. Another day you can get that and fall apart, right? And nothing actually is different about that email. The only thing that was different is like you that morning. And I'm sure we've all had situations where you've reacted to exactly the same thing in a completely different way. Or sometimes nothing changes in your life, but one day it's all a disaster, and the next day you're like, I've got this, it's okay. And the only thing that's changed is your mindset in the moment.
Yeah. So that manage stress is much sometimes say, well, you can't do anything about stress. There's so much you can do about stress. In fact, I think we can do a lot more than we give ourselves credit for.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was number 5, but we've got a bonus one. We've only got a couple more minutes here, but what's our, like, if we've done 5, but what's our number 6?
Become a better sleeper.
Yeah. Because we can't really leave a talk on longevity without touching on sleep.
No, you really can't. And that'll be in anyone and everyone's, whoever's talking about longevity, we'll always talk about stress and sleep. And here, just real quick on sleep, somewhere ideally between 7 and 9 hours. There's so many cool things you can figure out, like what gets you to your best. And I think I've shared here, 7 hours, 15 minutes plus up to 8 hours for me, prime time, beast mode, and like game on. I'd also like to say that sleeping 9, 10, 11 hours is not healthy either. So we have to, like, there's a window for human beings. And that's why it's kind of between that 7 and 8, 7 and 9 hours. So find yourself somewhere in there. And there's some fringe people out there, yet that for the most part will be where we thrive at our best. And the closer that I'll leave it on sleep, the closer we can get our sleep to kind of match up or kind of tag up with the circadian rhythm, we get up with the light and we go to bed with the dark within an hour or two on either side of that. The more we get in this universal flow of chi, this universal energy, the better off that we're simply going to be. All right. So quick review here. So we got, don't smoke, move regularly, move often, move better, right? We're going to get our weight under some kind of normalcy or really an ideal weight for us. Eat real food, de-stress yourself, which really means get stronger, increase your capacity, and then find a good sleep rhythm. So those 6, I know we said 5, but those 6 right there are probably the 6 simplest yet solid strategies for living longer and truly to not die, which I think is pretty cool as well.
And as you said, everyone can do them, right?
Yeah. That's the beauty of that list right there. We can all do them. And I think for many of this might have felt really simple, yet a great reminder that there's a lot of, we don't have to overcomplicate health. It is the simple things that's really going to move the needle the most.
Yeah. And exactly. I always, I can't remember who said it to me, but you might've heard something before, but if you're not implementing it, then you need to hear it again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what's going to be our, we've gone through lots of things. What's going to be our one takeaway or our one action that listeners can take to move them towards their goal of superhuman today?
I think with the different clinical insights and how much I've been inspired, I think that it really just go for more. Why not go for more? I love it. That's really the tone that I took out of so many people. Whether they finish their cleanses, they're starting these new programs, or just going for more. And the reason they're doing it is because they can, and they know that they're awesome, And they know if they do more and more better things and awesome things, that they become a better human being, which is awesome.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, everybody who's tuning in. We will see you next week, same time, same place, for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
And of course, appreciate and love all you guys. Keep doing your thing, keep sharing it out, keep spreading love. And of course, taking deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. You'll be awesome.